So I would request everyone. Okay. So I would request everyone to sit in Gyan Mudra for Om chanting. So first we'll exhale and then we'll inhale deep and chant Om one time. Om. I would like to once again welcome all of you. I would like to share a few protocols for this meeting. First is to request to keep everybody mic off and camera on so that we can interact with each other. We'll have a question answer round at the end of the session after the explanation. So would request everyone to hold their questions till that time. And if somebody has to ask a question, probably they can write it in the chat box. Yeah, I can see you. Okay. So last time we discussed about the spine and how useful yoga is to take care of it. This time we'll have another common issue which is found more in ladies, which is thyroid. So without wasting much time, I would request Balrajji to please come and take the floor. Balrajji, over to you.
Thank you, Dinesh. Dinkarji, thank you very much. Welcome all and namaste to everyone. I'll just share my presentation so that you all know what it is. Okay, fine. So today's topic is about thyroid. This time the topic is not that vast than the earlier one when we're discussing about the spine, because in spine there were a lot of problems, a lot of issues you can say, which has to be minorly discussed, and then how yoga can help in that. We can guide on that. But in thyroid, it's not that, because it's just a one gland actually, and if it's not functioning properly, then what the problem occurs, and how through yoga we can help to balance the function of thyroid. So if you see, the thyroid is a gland which is located just on the collarbone of our neck in front side. Mostly thyroid everyone knows, so I'll just keep this very fast, and I'll come to the main point, how through yoga we can manage to balance this gland. Yeah. So what do thyroid actually do? So that we have to be more concerned and on that. So it produces a hormones which controls the metabolism, and this metabolism is the main role in our body for all our energy things, which controls our heart, our brain, our digestion systems, everything you can say. And what it produces T3 and T4 hormones, which is probably, again, as I said, controlling the metabolism of our body. Who tell thyroids to produce hormones? This is also important, because today we have to understand that only working on thyroid will not help unless and until you also work with the thermostat of the thyroid. Like in our AC system, we have a controller and we have an AC unit. If your controller is not working properly, if it is not, like, you set a temperature of say like 22 degree, and the controller, when it sees there's a thermostat in that, it sees the temperature of the room. If it is 22 degree, it will stop. If it is low or high, it accordingly it sends the power supply to the compressor to on off. If the temperature goes below that, it will send a command to stop the compressor. If the temperature goes high, it will command the compressor to on it. Same way, we have a gland pituitary which is located behind our head, which do this job. It produces hormones. Suppose if the hormones in your body it's less, so this gland will get the signal. It will produce hormones to your thyroid. The thyroid will understand that, and it will start producing. When it produces, it again goes to your gland, and again it sees the quantity of hormones produced. If it feels that yeah, now the quantity is being enough for your body, it again pass the command to your thyroid to stop it. What is the thyroid disease? So when this hormones, it is not produced what is required, or it is produced excess or low, and if it is not in balance, then the problem comes. What are the problems? There are two stages: when it produces very high and when it is produced very low. So when it produces very high, it is called hyper. When it produces very low, it is called hypo. So when it produces too much of hormones, what happens? So this all the disorder you find in your body, which in that hyper, the other way we can consider it as hyper means high energy. You can consider everything you want to do fast, fully with energetic. Even your body functions also that way. Like a digestion system will work fast. Your extracting system will work fast. You have to go again and again to washroom. Your heart rate will be fast. So everything will be fast in your body. Your skin, yeah, sweating will be more too much in that. So like that, these are the disorders when you have hyper. And when you have hypo, so it's just completely reverse of it. Everything will be slow. Your digestion power will be slow. You have constipation. Your extracting system will not work. Your heart rate will be slow. So another like joint pains and all other things. Your energy level will also be low. Like you will not be able to work too much. Like like if you come from the office, you'll say, I feel like lying on a bed. In hyper, you'll feel like again after coming from office also you feel like doing something or other. Like the body will not allow you to sit at one place. So this is the two reverse side of the problems of thyroid. Now this much is the only theory of thyroid medically if you take it. And uh, before we continue further on that, so this all information, as I said in my previous section also, these are all information taken from the net, and I don't have any personal experience in this. As earlier I was having a personal experience in the spine, lower back pain and all that, but in this I don't have any personal experience. Yeah, but whatever mentioned in our BYS book, all these informations are related from there also. It's all same. Wherever you find the information will be same only, whether you consider BYS book or any other book, or you go into Google and search on that. But how this problem and this problem and the yoga, how this relates, what yoga can do to solve this problem, what rules and regulations we should follow, or what system we should follow, so that we can balance this thyroid, and so that all this problem doesn't come to us. So let's do the first process in yoga asana to start with is your neck movement. So if you see front and back movement, all this movement should go along with your breathe. When your chin goes down, you exhale. When your chin goes up, you inhale. Now many people they don't take this chin down. They just keep it here. You have to completely use your neck to take it down. Same way on the side movement. You try to see that your left and right ear try to be close as possible toward your shoulder. Round movement, 360-degree circle. Even this also should be with inhale, exhale. And front back. Normally this is a new one, which we not other threes we have done. So very first it starts with the neck movement. Now this neck movement normally comes into warm-up exercise. So now we will go further and on that. So this neck movement, whether you have hypo or hyper, any condition, you or you are into balance. So now we'll take three stages. You are balanced means you don't have any problem. Hyper and hypo. So neck movement should be done by everyone. The first asana, which is again can be used in both hyper and even balance, all three, not both, all three. If you see I hope this the picture is much clear to you all. If not, you can ask me. When we're doing this cat and cow position, very first you start with this position. You have to make sure you're expanding your neck as much as possible. Many people, they don't stretch their neck. They keep the neck soft and they more concentrate on their spine. So you have to make sure if you have a thyroid issue, or even if you don't have a thyroid issue, you have to see that, because in yoga asana, what it is, from the top to the bottom, each and every muscles, each and every bones, each and every cells you count it is getting workout. If you slightly also, if you don't like, as I said, in the neck, if you don't properly bend your neck, so you are just avoiding one part of your body to get the proper workout. When you exhale, when you take your chin down, again you have to make very much sure that first you bend your neck properly by exhaling down. Always see, you don't have to do it this way. You have to take the neck down. So this till here, your chin coming up. And when you're taking the chin down, doesn't mean you stay over there. You have to press your chin over the collarbone over here, not only staying down. You try to press like just keep a coin over here. You're holding a coin. That way you have to keep it pressed. So inhale, up, exhale, down. This is the first asana which you have to do if you have this issue. Second one. So this asanas also I have made as per the rules of our BYS, that we do first standing asana, then sitting, then lying on our tummy, and then the back. So I have divided the asana in a sequence that wise. Ustrasana. So many people, they make a mistake, like mostly the newcomers, when they don't know how to bend back. And many people, when they see left hand side, many people, the old students, when they do properly asana, so they want to immediately go back and touch their hand on it. So please avoid that. There's each and every asana, there is a stage of 1 to 10. You have to first do stage 1. Once you feel comfortable in stage 1, then only go for stage 2. Just keep this in mind. Even if when you see somebody doing a mistake, please tell them, request them, please do stage by stage. So the first stage is you have to keep your hands back properly. Here the lady has kept the palm facing downward. We in our class ask them to keep the thumbs together behind this. This thumb normally press the lower lumbar region. So first thing is bending the neck. Now the picture is not that much clear. So first in this, you have to keep the spine straight and bend the neck only first, as much as possible. After that, you bend your spine backward. The whole body weight is here only, on your arms. Once you feel comfortable over here, then first you leave your right hand and try to touch your heel. Now again from here, if you're comfortable, then you leave the other hand. You see the lady has left the other hand and she is keeping on the left hand on the left feet. And then if you see here, the neck is not stretched over here. Then this stage, the neck is properly stretched down, because the more you stretch your neck, the gland will be stretched. So if you have a hypo, okay, I'll clear this now only so that all the other asanas pictures when I show or when I will describe that, it will be easy for you to understand. If you are a patient of hypo, you have to stretch your neck as much as possible. If you are hyper, you have to bend down. Okay, so all the other asanas I will explain. So this is also one mistake normally many members do. So I don't consider this as a mistake, because as I said, we are going to be stage by stage. You have to, from this stage, you have to come to this stage. So you have to press your hip outside so that the asana comes properly. So that will also help you in your back pain. So one asana, as I said, it has a multiple benefit. So this asana works on your thyroid, on your lungs, on your back pain, on your hips, on your sciatica issue, on your shoulder. The numbers you count, everything you will find on this asana. Your knee, your ankles, see the ankles also stretch very nicely over here. The thighs will be very strongly clapped over here. So one asana have a multiple benefit, but we will talk about thyroid. So for thyroid, you have to stretch your neck as much down possible, looking toward the, I think here, instead of looking toward the sky, you have to look toward the ground possible. That way you have to make the asana. Let's go to the next asana. So after Ustrasana, the counter pose is must to do. So you do Shashank Asana. So I hope everyone knows Shashank Asana, not to, so that you relax and then you start the second asana. Then we go to Bhujang Asana. Now in Bhujang Asana, there are variations actually, I'll say. The first variation is the elbow one. Here, if you see, the neck is not bent back. And here, if you see, the neck is bent back. The only difference is you have to keep this elbow down, or you can even take the elbow 1 inch up from the mat. That's depend upon your capacity, how you want. You can start with this stage, but neck should be bent completely back as much as possible, looking toward the sky. Like if you see, not only the eyes is facing the sky, but the whole face, front face is facing the sky. Now, I know initially it will be difficult, but as much as possible, you have to keep practicing this. I will say in all the asanas, what I should keep practicing. Just understand what is the final position and try to achieve that by regular practice. And the extended one, here also you see the difference. Here the neck is not. Now, if you do only this, you will get a benefit on your back pain, your shoulder, your thighs, your ankle, but the neck is not with benefit. So in this position, the whole body is getting benefit. See, from the hair till the toe finger, the whole body is stretched in that. Those who are doing regular asana, they know how beneficial this asana is. This also again is for hypo actually. Those who have a hypo issues, they have to use this. Now for Bhujangasana, there is no counter pose. After Bhujangasana, now we'll go to the back. Setu Bandhasana. See the difference in Setu Bandhasana. Now this now turns to from hypo to hyper now. Now we are going to press it. If you see this chest area, the collarbone area, you have to lift. You don't have to put the chin down here. You have to lift this area up by pushing it up and touching this area toward your chin. Normally we bend our chin like this. In this asana, you have to keep your neck softly over here. When you lift your body up, when you lift your hip up, the same time your lungs will also be lifted up, and you have to with your knee support and your feet support, you have to take this hip toward your head side. So this the collarbone moves toward your chin, and the collarbone touches your chin, and it makes proper lock of your neck, of your thyroid gland. So in this, what happens? The blood circulation also moves toward your neck, and this stimulates the thyroid properly. Next asana, Maste asana, the fish pose. All are familiar about this also. This is for hypo. Now, in this, there are two variations of doing it. One is by keeping those who have a difficulty of making a Padmasana and doing this. So for them, the legs have been stretched straight. In this feet is not been stretched. You can even stretch this feet and try to touch the ground. The palm is placed below the hip properly. The whole body weight is coming on the elbow. Most of the people, they keep the 100% body weight on the neck. So probably in that situation, sometime if slightly misbalance if you happen, so could be a harm to your shoulder or your neck or your collarbone side. So you try to keep 5 or 10% of weight on your neck, or sorry, on your crown, and balance of the weight on your elbow, so that if any misbalance is there, it will not harm your body. And you see how the neck is being stretched over here. This asana, as I said, this also have a multiple benefit. If you see the feet when she will stretch downward, so that ankle will be, whole thighs is being stretched properly. The whole spine, if you see, has a nice curve over here. And the shoulder, when the body weight is on the shoulder, so the shoulder also gets toned up over here. The other variation is by having a Padmasana. In this also, you have to make for sure, if you see this position, first the person is making Padmasana and then lying down on the back, and then with the hand support. In this, when we go to Chakrasana, we keep the hand like this, so that way he will lift the lungs up, the chest up, and then will come on the crown, and then he will rest the elbow down, and with the fingers he will catch the thumb of your leg. So this is the other asana which you should do if you have issue, or if you don't have, if you do the regular asana, it will try to maintain your thyroid functioning properly. Next asana, Chakrasana. Now from here on, this asana, only those who are regular in the class or who are under the teacher guidance, they should only do this. Otherwise, probably a slight mistake in doing this asana can also create a back pain. So when you are with the teacher and you're trying first time, so make sure that with the guidance you do this. The other way of doing this asana is, you can this much of your hip part, you can keep it on your bed, and this much of part you can just slide down to on the downside of the floor. The system will be same, and then you have to try to see that you bend the neck as much as possible, so that the blood flow is also there and the thyroid is also stretched, and in that it will massage the thyroid properly. You can see work out of the thyroid properly. So if some few asanas which are difficult, you try to use crop or try to use some different systems to get more things in that. Then once you do this Chakrasana, it's very important that you do a balance asana again Shashank asana, to rest the spine and other part of the body. Even the blood circulation also should settle down. So go for some time for a Shashank asana. Next asana, Vipreet Karni asana. So a lot of people, they are not able to take the leg up. So this is the other thing. You can keep a pillow and then raise your leg up. Now in this, there's a distance between the chin and the collarbone. This should not be there. The picture is not that correct, but you have to make sure that the chin is touching again the same here, the collarbone over there. Or you can even use a wall. If you don't have this pillow or some system, you can even keep the leg on a wall. So it will become an L shape. Like suppose this is a wall, the feet will be over here, the knee will be bent over here, and then your spine like this, L shape like that, or Z shape like. Then shoulder stand, Sarvangasana. So this also should be done under the guidance. Now I'll go to previous screen. If this asana and Chakrasana and Sarvangasana, if this is not done under the guidance, you might invite back pain, because many people the lung side, it is bent. The lung side, it is from the shoulder till your hip, the spine is not straight. This area, they bend. It's slightly like bend over here. So more in the pressure, it is on your shoulder. Suppose this is your shoulder. The pressure is on the shoulder, but a lot of pressure is on the spine also, because the spine is slightly bent in this shape. It is not straight like this. It is slightly bent like this. Many people they find. So if anybody will have attended the teacher class, we always say to keep this hand below the back and at as low as possible, so that spine doesn't bend over here. It erects properly straight from here. You will see the neck is, the chin is very much stick to the collarbone over here. Let's go to the next asana. Halasana. Again, this asana also should be like if you have a heavy weight body and the flexibility is very less in your body, so you should avoid this asana. Other all asanas you can do. Doesn't mean if you don't do this asana, so less effect you will get on your thyroid. Nothing like that. Nothing like that. That all this 5, 6, 7, maybe around 8, 10 asanas are there. All the asanas you do, then only you will have a benefit on thyroid. Nothing like that. Even 2 or 3 asanas if you do, that will also give the same benefit what the other asanas are doing. It is just this, or the different asanas is just like more flexibility in your body. Nothing like that less effect or more effect will have it. Or like you will do this asana also, you'll have more effect, more boost will come, you will get cure fast, nothing like that. So if you see the spine, this was I was telling about Shavang asana also. In that also asana, the spine is slightly bent. So more pressure comes over this area. So if you see the spine, how straight it is, 90 degree on the floor, that way you should keep your spine when you're doing this such asana. Okay, the most and the very important asana, Siya asana, the lion pose. Many people are still learning how to do this asana. So if you see how the spine is being stretched out first by keeping the arms, this palm, why we keep it inside, so that the more stretch comes in our body. This asana you cannot do with a loose body, because you have to like how in Bhastika Pranayam when we exhale forcefully, in this asana double the force is required than what is when, or maybe triple the force what you put into Bhastika Pranayam. From your navel till your throat, whole pressure you have to put to make a roll, the lion sound. If you see the tongue is the mouth is completely widely open, the tongue is widely kept out. So when you forcefully put the air out, it activates your thyroid gland, or you can say massage, or you can say it makes your thyroid better. You can say. So now we are finished with all the asanas. What we can do, what we should do if we have a thyroid issue. Now let's go to the pranayam. I will just finish it fast because pranayam everyone knows what are the pranayams basically is required for if you have any condition of thyroid. So if you have any of this, whether hypo or hyper, so this all pranayam you should do. First is the deep breathing, Anulom Vilom pranayam. Ujjaini pranayam is also like the lion roaring is, and this Ujjaini pranayam. This is must for all the 3 problems. If the problem you can say balance, when you don't have any problem, is also a problem, because you have to continue that balance. If you don't continue the balance, then you'll fall left, down or up, anything. So even the balance is also a problem. So even that also you have to do Ujjaini pranayam. Brahmari pranayam also very important. Om chanting very important. Without this, it cannot work. Why these both are very important? As I earlier, very initially I said, the remote control, the thermostat. This Brahmari pranayam and Om chanting, it's have a direct effect in your brain and the gland. When this B sound, the humming sound, the Om chanting, when it goes into your brain, in your head, it gives a nice effect to your pituitary glands. So this Brahmari pranayam and Om chanting is very, very important. Without these 2 pranayam, you cannot balance your thyroid issue. You say I did all the 10 asanas or 20 more different asanas also you did to balance your thyroid, but you're not doing Brahmari pranayam, you're not doing Om chanting, probably the thermostat will not be repaired, and you will keep on doing this asana years by years. Now, if you have hyper and hypo, so what extra you should do? So hyper, as I said, energy high, heat, too much heat. So you have to cool that. So for that, Chandra Bedi pranayam you have to do, Shitli pranayam and Shitkari pranayam. And reverse of it, if you have hypo, so it's all cool, so you have to generate heat in your body. So Surya Bedi pranayam and Bhastika pranayam. Now, people who have any other health issue, so they should consider how Bhastika pranayam they can do. Like if you have a asthma or heart problem or high BP, so you have to consider doing only Surya Bedi pranayam. Kapalbhati pranayam you can add in all for 1 minute if you are able to do it. And the last one, this pranayam also within last and the lead is a mudra. A mudra also plays very important role. We have not tried this. I don't have any experience also because we have not, other than Gyan mudra, we have not tried any other mudra. But a lot of things I've heard from all the ancients, the priests and yoga gurus and all, that mudra also plays very important role, because we also all know that all the nerves ends in at our palm. Probably when you press this, the energy stimulates and it passed over all. So I'm done on the thyroid. We probably take question afterward, after Nini finishes section. Or
yeah, I think yes.
Yeah, fine. Okay, so I will hand over to Dinkarji. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Balaji. Thank you for sharing the knowledge. Now, we have various functions inside our body. I would like to welcome Nini ji for sharing her knowledge about it.
Thank you. Can I share my screen, because if the host allows?
Yes, you can.
But it's showing disabled by the host.
You can share, Nini. You are now co-host.
Yes.
Oh, okay. One second.
Yes, it is there.
Yeah, okay. Okay, good evening, everyone. We just talked about the importance of the vagus nerve, which is a very important nerve in our body. It has a connection with the yoga also. So let's see what is that. Okay, in one of our session, Sushilji explained our body system. One of the system is our nervous system. You know that it helps all the parts of the body to communicate with each other. So there is central nervous system, that is our brain and our central nervous system consisting of our brain and your spinal cord, and the PNS, that is the peripheral nervous system. In that, we are talking about today this peripheral nervous system, which is very important also, that consists of parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system and enteric nervous system. So what is a sympathetic nervous system means? It is responsible for the fight and flight response. That is, it prepares us for the action. So whatever we have to survive, so we have to work for that. So it prepares us for the actions, alertness, create alertness. So in response to the dangers, by secreting some of the hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. This is known as the stress hormones. When this secreted into our body, automatically our heart rate increases, breathing rate increases, and some changes happens in our body. So whereas the parasympathetic nervous system, this is responsible for rest and digest. This will relaxes the system fully by secreting some of the hormones like oxytocin and neurotransmitter like acetylcholine. So this is responsible for the rest and digest. So these are the two important systems which work like counteract, like one system come into action, then the other will come into action, and then they counteract each other. They work together. Okay. So here we see the functions. The sympathetic nervous system, this increase the, all I told, no, increases the alertness, prepares for action by secretion of some stress hormones. It increases heart rate, breathing rate, slows down the digestion. That time the digestion will be slow. Also increase inflammation, decrease immunity, and over activity of the cells lead to cell death also. So blood flow is directed towards the muscles. So from the organs, it will direct towards the skeletal muscles so that it prepares for the action, and it dilates the pupil, allowing more light to enter the eye, and reduces the salivary gland secretion also, because it reduces the digestion, slows down the digestion. So whereas in the parasympathetic system, this opposite of all this happens, that it inhibits the body to overworking, or from overworking, and body became calm and relaxed, and secretion of some hormones, that important hormones that called cuddle hormones like oxytocin are secreted, and decreases the breathing rate, heart rate, everything go down. And then the body fully relaxed, and immunity is increased, helps in digestion, reduces inflammation, because this inflammation is the cause of most of the chronic diseases like blood pressure, your diabetes, everything. So in this, inflammation goes down and helps in cell regeneration. New cells are formed and direct the blood towards the internal organs. So they are getting activated and contract the pupil for the closer vision, increase the salivary gland secretion. So helps in digestion. That is what parasympathetic nervous system is doing. So these both counteract, they work together. One come into action, then the other won't work, and the other come into action, the other one won't work. Like that, they counteract each other. So here, the parasympathetic nervous system, we saw later, like the last slide, which is mainly controlled by your vagus nerve. This vagus means, vega means the wanderer, like it is the longest nerve in our body. See, you can see it starts from the brainstem and elongate till to your gut, like here, like this. So it's the one nerve which starts from the brainstem and elongate till the gut. So while it starts from the brain, we saw so many connections. It's connected to your face muscles, your throat, your neck region, and most of the body systems like your respiratory system, your all of the systems like heart, it's connected to your heart, it's connected to your digestive system, and the reproductive system, everything. So it has a connection to main systems in our body. That's why it's controlling all these things, like it slows down all these things. So it's the 10th cranial nerve. Cranial nerve means it starts from the brain. That's why we call it cranial nerve. It's the longest one. So it's connected to most of the system, and that the word means wander, like it's wander throughout the body. That's why it's called as wander, vagus nerve. So this is very important because the vagal tone is very important for our, healthy health, for our health. Because the vagal tone is called as vagal tone. What is it? A vagal tone means it's the strength, speed, efficiency of the vagus nerve, that how it acts. So that is called the vagal tone. If we have a good or healthy vagal tone, we are skilled in switching between the sympathetic to the parasympathetic. So whenever the stress comes, we act, and after the stress goes, we come back to the relaxed state. That is the switching. So if we have a healthy vagal tone, we very easily we switch from the SNS to the PNS. That is the vagal tone if you have a healthy vagal tone. So we need a stimulation of the vagus nerve for this healthy vagal tone, because now we know the stresses keep on coming. Stresses like it's roll in like from outside we get so many stresses, it's keep on rolling. So our sympathetic nervous system always in action, so this will go down, this can't act, and the activity will be reduced. Those people, the vagal tone will be very less, they don't have a positive vagal tone. So for that we need to stimulate the vagus nerve to get a healthy vagal tone. One of the reason is this sympathetic nervous system cannot distinguish between the physical or the psychological distress. Sometimes it considered it as a physical stress and it will act. Maybe it will be of psychological distress. So it can't distinguish. So same action, same loop will follow. So eventually all our organs get damaged, and we get so many chronic diseases, pressure, everything. And we even will get depression, anxiety, all this will come. So it is very important to tone your vagus nerve. So by activating the vagus nerve, that is the importance of healthy, good vagal tone. So we talk about, already told the physiological benefits, like it's dilate the blood vessels, blood flow becomes smooth and all. So some of the psychological benefits also there for the vagus nerve. Let's see what is that. Like psychological benefits, this is very important. It controls the mood swing, regulation of emotion, improved pro-social behavior, that is the relation with others, social competence, social bonding, well-being, because it helps in the secretion of cuddle hormone or oxytocin that will improve our social bonding and well-being. It reduces the anxiety, depression, and also aggression. So a regulation of emotion is very important. This the people having the healthy vagal tone, they can't stay for a longer period in a very agitated or aggressive phase or some very depressed state. They can easily come back to their normal emotion. So they have the control of that, how to control their emotion without going so staying for a prolonged period in a particular emotion. So this will damage our system, right? When we stay in a very confused state for a longer period. So the regulation of emotion is, if we have a healthy vagal tone, we can control all our emotions very tactically. We have the control in our hands. So this helps in that. Then the social competence and pro-social behavior, how we behave in the society, all this will improve. And it reduces anxiety, depression, and aggression and all. If you have a healthy vagal tone, we won't go into a depressed state, or we don't get an anxiety like that. Nothing will happen. So that is the psychological benefits of healthy vagal tone. So when we get into a fight or something like with colleagues or someone, whoever has the the healthy vagal tone, they have to resolve it. They can't hold any negative thoughts. So they come and tell sorry, whatever in what part it's right or wrong. They have to console everything. They have to stay in a positive way. So those having the healthy vagal tone will come and say sorry first. So yeah. So here comes the importance of yoga. So for getting a healthy vagal tone, the studies suggest yoga practice, regular yoga practice will help us to get a healthy vagal tone. So we already saw the benefits of psychological and physiological benefits of the healthy vagal tone. So yoga practice is very helps us in that way to get a healthy vagal tone. So regular practice, like we do the physical postures, the asanas in our class, that every pose will help in getting the healthy vagal tone. Yoga fully is for that. So whatever we are doing in yoga class, like the physical postures, so while doing the physical postures, you have to correct the alignment. That is very important. And each movement connect with your breathing. Each movement you bend back or bend forward, each movement you have to connect with your breathing. That you have to take care. And and always your face muscles should be relaxed. We always say like keep a gentle smile on the face and enjoy the pose and do, because this we saw the vagus nerve that starting from the brainstem, it has a connection to your face muscles also. So when you keep a confused face, and that will affect the result, you won't get the result. So you have to keep your face muscles relaxed. That is very important. So some of the asanas which have effects also back bends, all the asanas, the shoulder and neck rotation, slowly we do, if we do slowly, all this helps in getting a healthy vagal tone. And the next one is, pranayama and meditation. This is the best way to get a healthy vagal tone. The deep breathing, when we in a confused or very agitated state, we do deep breathing, right? Our brain will tell, take a deep breath and all. So this, that moment we relaxed. So if we take a deep breath, that moment we get relaxed. So deep breathing is very important. That involving your belly, the belly breathing, we involve our diaphragm, belly, that kind of deep breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, that will helps to get a healthy vagal tone. And also reducing the breath. If we are taking 15 to 18 breath per minute, we have to reduce with the practice of pranayama. Slowly, we have to reduce it to 5 to 6 breath per minute. So that also helps. And always keep, we in some of the pranayama will tell like double the inhalation, we have to exhale. So that is also important. Exhalation should be longer than the inhalation. And some of the pranayama which have effect on the vagus nerve is the Ujjayi pranayama, Nadi Shodhan, Bhramari. They have a good effect on the vagus nerve. And the mindful meditation, we know that after 5 minutes of meditation, we feel very relaxed and happy, because that is the best way in that the vagus nerve getting stimulated very fast. If we do the mindful meditation, the body and mind will come like communicate each other and connect each other. So after meditation, we'll get a clarity. It restores the body. It improves the system, and also improve the compassion to ourselves and also kindness to others. And other than that, Yoga Nidra also helps. The Yoga Nidra is a deep relaxing method, Yoga Nidra. And humming, chanting, like we chant Om chanting, what we'll do, all those helps in getting a healthy vagal tone. Or splashing cold water on the face, that also helps. So that's it about the vagus nerve. This is the longest nerve in our body, and it has connection to all the major systems. That is, it's important. So to relax, now we know that we are getting so many stress. The outside, what is happening, we cannot control, right? So what we can do, we can prepare ourselves for anything, like prepare our inside for everything. So after doing the yoga practice, we eventually get a good vagal tone, so that we are prepared for anything. So we can control, like act wisely, so that our body will be prepared. So that's about it. And thank you.
Thank you, Nini. We'll quickly take some questions. If anybody has some questions for Balraj or Nini.
We have something in chat?
Do we have some questions? Anybody has some questions?
Okay, we have a question in the chat box. It's about Ustrasan for hypo or hyper. See, as I already explained, if you are a hypo, you have to stretch. If you are hyper, you have to go down. So in Ustrasan, when we go back, we stretch our neck back. We stretch this. So now you can guess what it is for. So any asana where you stretch your neck back like this, it is for hypo. And when you go down like this, it's for hyper. I hope I've answered that. Any other questions?
Take another one.
That what you said, look up, that is for to, if you have an hypo, then you should go for this sort of more, okay. And if you have hyper, then you have to come, okay.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, to counter that. Okay.
It is similar to our other asana. You know, when we do Shashangasana, why we do? To rest our body. So going down, anything going down is to rest. Anything going back is to increase the energy. That's very simple. We have a question for Nini, I think here. Reducing breathing rate to 5 to 6 is only for a few minutes or continues?
That's we know that when we start the practice, it eventually comes after practicing for so many years, our breathing rate will come down. If we ask our sir, our mentor and all, they will, he make me feel his stomach going up and down and his breathing, how many breaths he's taking and all. So after many years of practice only, he achieved it. So when we practice regularly, it will come down eventually. We'll take 5 to 6 breaths per minute. That stage we will reach only by practice. Now we can count, like you can test yourself how many breaths you are taking when in a relaxed state. Then eventually you practice pranayam and see how is the change happening. So that's by deep breathing, all the pranayam we do, anulom vilom and all, that will make your nasal passage clear, and you can breathe more oxygen in and exhale more out. So that happens by practice only.
Very, very much true. Everything happens by regular practice. If you leave a practice for a day also, you are just like almost a week or 10 days back, if one day gap if we do. So also I will just add what Nidhi said. The very important part in yoga is breathing. And if we talk about the nerves and the system, the emotions and all that, or the functions or any hormones imbalance, if you see in different emotions, different action, the breathing patterns change. So what Nini said, like if you keep a 5 or 6 breathing in a minute, it's not that easy. Don't think that for 1 week if you do, or for 1 month if you do, and then you are expert into that. It needs a very long practice. You might need 6 months also, or year also, because if you cry, your breathing pattern is different. If you laugh, your breathing pattern is different. There are different variations of laughing in that breathing pattern change. When you are thinking, your breathing pattern change. When you are working, your breathing pattern change. When you're doing extraction system, that time your breathing change. When you're eating food, your breathing system is changed. But what Nini said, that time in this all process, your breathing patterns remain same, 5 to 6 in a minute. It means the breathe what you will take in, it will have a 1 count. When you breathe in, it will have 1 count. So you have to imagine what quantity of breath you will take, so that it will make 5 or 6 breath in a minute. Anything else? Like
so,
I think.
So Nidhi, you said that the idea is to maintain a good vehicle tone. So that means a good when you maintain a good vehicle tone, so that person will have a good control over the emotions. That is right.
Good vagal tone means control over the psychological benefits, no? So many psychological benefits will get.
Benefits, okay.
We can control our emotions.
Emotions.
That's why yoga we tell, no, be
Okay.
emotionally very stable. So this is the
Stable.
reason, scientific
Okay.
reason for that.
Vagal tone.
Yoga is making the system is strong. And then,
Stronger, okay. Thank you.
And everything ends with the meditation, like, you know, the movement. See, most of our thing, what we do is, or when we see the outer world or and all that, so we are more into physical thing. But we are not so far gone deep into breathing and the meditation. If this system doesn't work, this system will not work with yoga. Physical, like if you do physical practice, this system will not have that much effect than breathing and meditation. Your control system, this is the main control system, which passes the signals to all the glands, as I said about the thyroid gland, and as Nini said that the vagus nerve flows from here. So the system starts from here. This will only happen when you do Bhramari Pranayam, when you do Om chanting, when you do meditation. You know, if physical thing is like physical exercise is like you did now, and you worked out for a couple of hours. Finish. It is like charging your battery mobile daily, maybe after every 8 hours or something. It's not permanent energy in that. But breathing and meditation is like charging your battery forever. No exhaustion then. So it's all our sadhak's choice whether they want to. It doesn't mean that you don't have to do the physical exercise. Physical exercise is like suppose this my hand is there. Okay, this is very stiff, very jammed, and when I'm breathing, so the pran is not going in this hand. Why? Because it is very stiff, very strong, or muscles, the cells are very strong. There is no proper path and all that. So we do physical exercise to make that flexible thing, the nerves flexible, the blockage to be removed, the air which if any extra air is there, that has to be removed, so that when I do the pran, the breathing exercise, the actual pran comes to over here. So I have given the example of just my palm. The whole body is there. So first you do the warm-up exercise to make the things ready. Then you do asana to if the regular people, they know that we twist different part of our body, different part of our cells, the internal organs also. Just for what? So that the road is clear, the path is clear. Now the path is clear. Now you have to drive in the pran. Finally, that stage comes when you have to drive the pran in. If you don't do that, what's the daily, you will make the road clear and you will just go off. Again, you'll come next day, you'll make the road clear, you go off. Don't think 1 or 2 minutes or 5 minutes of pranayam is equal to 1 hour of exercise. No, you have to do 1 hour of pranayam, and 10-20 minutes or 10 minutes also is enough for a yoga asana. As I said, one asana if you do, from the toe till the head, everything gets stretched out. Each and every cells gets stretched out. Every cells get worked out. Any questions other than anyone's any clearance from here? Nini and I'm waiting. I think we are much, Nini, we both are much clear to our friends. We are on our time also today.
Yeah.
Any question about the last section on the spine? Fine, then Dinkarji, I will hand it over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Balaji. Thank you, Nidhi, for sharing the knowledge. And thank you, everyone, for joining the session. We'll just take a leave from here now.
Yes.
And, yeah. Okay.
Thank you
everyone
for joining.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night. Good night.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
sir.
We'll have a Om chant.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir Balraj.
Thank you.